Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Badenoch and Strathspey Area Committee. This meeting will be recorded and uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel. Do we have any apologies for absence? I don't think we have any apologies today.
No.
And any declarations of interest, members?
No.
Okay, so without further ado, we'll go straight into our first item, which is Scottish Fire and Rescue Services Area Performance Report, and this will be presented by Nick Nethercott. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you for meeting with me today. I hope you're all well. So we have provided you with the SFRS Area Committee Performance Report for the period of 1st of October 2024 to the 31st of March 2025. The performance report shows that in this period we had 2 accidental dwelling fires, but both were thankfully of low severity and had no fire-related fatalities or casualties. The service does continue to work closely with our partner agencies and communities to reduce the risk of fire and harm to householders by means of our post-domestic incident responses when attending incidents, home fire safety visits and working with our agencies. There were 6 deliberate fires for this period, all of which were secondary fires. Referrals were made with other agencies for those at work within our communities, and also we did engage with those involved in those fires where we could to try and educate and reduce the repeats of these. We attended 28 unwanted fire alarm signal incidents, which is now below the 3-year average. Personnel will continue to work in partnership with the clear aim of trying to eliminate all incident types through our preventative work and targeted engagement with premises in the area. We attended 12 road traffic collisions, which is below the 3-year average for the period. There was unfortunately 1 RTC fatality. There were 7 RTC related injuries, of which 3 went on to hospital following the incidents. Our prevention teams are working with partner agencies through the Highland Road Safety Group, Older Driver Virtual Reality Scheme and the Road Safety Scheme for new drivers as well. For our preventative work in the area, we attended and completed 48 home fire safety visits in the area, of which at the time 39 were deemed to be high-risk properties prior to our attendance there to try and support. In other news, just a couple of other points for you, coming away from the report slightly. In the previous committee meeting 6 months ago when I met with you all, we discussed the then low availability figures for the Granton second appliance, which at that time was reported at 18.66%. So I'd like to draw your attention to this period's figure of 60.71%, showing our improving figures. And as it is developing, it's worth noting that within that period, the actual figure for January to March is actually 75.37%, which is obviously a great result of a long period of efforts by SFRS teams and community members working together to support our community resilience. And one last point I would like to bring to your attention, that in this period, the Watch Commander of Carbridge Community Fire Station, Douglas MacDonald, he retired from the service after a staggering 46 years and 8 months of service working and protecting his community. And I'm sure you'd all like to join me in thanking Mr. MacDonald for his many years of service.
Indeed, yes.
Indeed, thank you very much. And yeah, I think on behalf of all members, congratulations to Mr. MacDonald on an incredible amount of service. Well done. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do we have any questions, members? Muriel. Okay, Councillor Coburn.
That's okay, thank you. Thanks, Nick, as ever, for the clarity of the report. A couple of questions. The fire service, the team looking at any measures going forward for our ageing demographic regarding the requirement to have more intensive or more visits for education support, because we are hoping to keep older people at home and safe, but equally we've got one of the highest age demographics in the Highlands. That's my first question. My second question is the older driver VRS, which I think is I hope I'm too young for that, but I'm not. I think it's a fantastic scheme, and I wondered if that would sit well with one of the strategies or strands we've got with the community planning partnership. Thank you.
Okay, so regarding the aging demographic, so we have recently revised our home fire safety visit system, and that has been done to try and identify those who are in the most need of help, so we can direct our efforts there rather than just a sort of a standard system we previously had. So that is part of identifying those that need help, so we can spend more time with them, and that would most certainly include the aging demographic. So our community action team in Inverness and our on-call teams are involved in home fire safety visits. We link in well with our agency referrals to get information, so we can find out who's in our community, who's needing that most support, and at that point we can then sort of direct our resources there, and that most certainly does include the aging demographics within our area. So I'd like to say yes, we do that. We're working on that. It's always an ongoing thing, and it is the key there is information sharing with agencies to ensure that once one partner agency within district identifies a property in need of support, then we're there as a part of a backup to contribute to that as well. Regarding the virtual reality driving scheme that you you mentioned, sorry, excuse me, that's actually police led, so that would be Police Scotland. Obviously we work with the Police Scotland and we support them with any of their efforts, and if we're able to support through our community action team, then we do and we will continue to do that. But that is a police led scheme, is my understanding, and that does also come under the Highland Road Safety Group that works with that to try and identify those again who are in need of support, create events so that we can get those drivers there to support them with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Can I just follow up on one of Councillor Colburn's questions there and just ask, so I mean, could someone request a home safety visit from the fire service, and if so, how do they do that?
So the simplest thing right now is essentially on our website, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service website, there is a link there. But where previously perhaps where people could request a visit, what we'll now do is it's sort of intelligence led based on the answers they give as to whether they would qualify for one, or perhaps it may be more suited, we can just direct them to information where they can kind of go and read and learn and educate themselves. So in other words, if you like, perhaps to quote the term, the worried well, those that are, then maybe we can inform them and give them reassurance by online resources. But those who would then qualify for a home fire safety visit, absolutely, they would get one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Love.
How many times do both grant appliances are they in use at the same time?
Can't give you a number, but what I can say is we run on a dynamic mobilising system, which basically means whenever we are asked to attend an incident, it is the closest appliances that are mobilised. So if there is an incident in Grantown, it would be for a dwelling or commercial premises, it would be the 2 pumps from Grantown that would go. It can happen. It does happen pretty regularly. So then you've got the likes of Avonmore and Kingussie, where we will send a second appliance to support another community. So it's based on closest pumps first, depends on the type of incident, what we recommend as the predetermined appliance requirement for that type of incident, and then the closest appliances will go. I can try and find some statistics for you as to what we have, but that's how we work, which is closest pumps first. That's how we work.
That's fine. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Councillor Bruce, do you know? Okay, thank you, Nick. I'll just ask probably a daft question. Just when I was reading the report, what's the difference between the other primary fire and secondary fire? Obviously, there was 6, and none of them were primary fires, and 6 of them secondary fires. What's the difference?
So we've got a definition for primary fires and secondary fires. So primary fires usually will involve buildings. Other primary fires might be where it's kind of getting close to or involving those buildings, but it's come from outside. So whereas the secondary fires really are, to give a good example of that, actually can break down those 6 secondary fires. Those 2 of those were controlled burns, where people were doing controlled burns in their premises or their properties, but members of public nearby maybe saw concern and thought to call the fire service. Another 2 were campfires that were left unattended. One was a bin fire, so a pile of rubbish, and one of those deliberate fires was children playing with fire that we attended. So secondary fires really are kind of your outside small fires.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Anything else, members?
No, thank you very much.
Hey, congratulations on your recruitment drive. I think that's really positive, so well done for everybody involved in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. We've got good interest right now. Not that we want it to stop, don't want to put anybody putting off being applying, but we are getting good engagement in all station areas within the valley, which is absolutely fantastic to see right now, and we do appreciate it, but we want to keep encouraging community members who may be interested to come along and see if they could join one of our teams.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for your attendance today, and thanks for your report. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Next, we have the housing performance report. There's been a report circulated, which we're asked to note, and this will be introduced by Housing Manager for South Highland, Jonathan Henderson. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I'll maybe just highlight a couple of sections from the report, members, if that's okay, and we'll take any questions thereafter. So in front of you is the Housing Management Performance Report for 24-25, taking us to the end of Q4. Couple of things just to highlight. 6.2. I do recall from the previous committee there was a bit of discussion about the arrears trend, but members will see at the table at 6.2, but we've seen quite a positive trend in the final 2 quarters of the financial year, which is good to see. 6.6, I think is worth highlighting. Members will note quite a positive picture for Badenoch and Strathspey relative to the percentage of gross rent arrears as a percentage of the annual rent due. 6.9 as well. I mean, I think that's quite an important illustration for me anyway of the breakdown of arrears, where we see the levels of arrears, and members will note the high number of cases at the under 500 mark. So what we're going to be doing as a team over the course of the next few while is really focusing in on those low level balances to try and make a big impact there, because as you'll note, relative to the other bands, that's significantly higher, and that's where we see the kind of lion's share of our arrears. Also, just to highlight 8.4, looking at the homeless presentations just generally, sort of seen a fairly static position from Q3 to Q4 in the year, and over the course of the past few years, you'll note that it's a fairly static number, and a fairly flat graph, albeit there's some ups and downs across various quarters. So yeah, that was just really the couple of things that I wanted to highlight, Chair, and happy to take any questions that members may have.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Members, Councillor Lovin.
Jonathan, it's about 9.1, the number of allocations completed, etc. I think it's still very concerning that if you look at this, effectively in Q4, we allocated 9 dwellings from the housing list, and then basically all the rest were from homeless applications. So if you look at this in the round, it basically means that if you're a local resident and you're looking for a house, the chances of you getting one are remote in the extreme. So I'm not convinced you can do anything about it, but I just wanted to highlight it.
Thanks, Councillor Lobbin. I mean, I think that table, I suppose, is just a kind of statistical illustration of the different routes that somebody would gain an outcome, but the number of lets to homeless applicants obviously reflects the kind of sincere pressure and priority that we've got as a service to try and address those challenges. But you know, that homeless applications can come from a variety of different areas and places and whatnot. So I take your point, but I think that it is reflective of that pressure that we have, and as I say, that's pretty much reflective of all the different areas that we look at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you for that. Before I ask my 2 questions, I'm going to follow on from Councillor Lobbin. Jonathan, I think the communication around some of the allocations and the homelessness can and does create some local tensions. So I'm pretty sure the team are cited on that, but I think it's something that we need to just be very aware of. One of my questions is regarding tenants from the other housing associations that we deal with. And there seems to be, when there's a problem, they come to Highland Council. How do we manage one sort of point of contact with that, or have you as a team, do you have any control or say or input with the housing associations that we deal with at B&S? That's my first question. And the second question, I was really interested in the antisocial behaviour stat. What qualifies for ESB to be recorded? Because I know I've submitted quite a number of things that are regarded by the people that are raising them to be antisocial. So I'm just wondering what the criteria are, because it's taken your team effort to deal with this situation. So I find that quite an interesting start. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Coburn. I mean, I suppose if there are particular issues with the contact with housing associations, then I suppose we would look to highlight that directly with the housing associations themselves. We do have contact at senior level with the association. So if there was any particular issues that you wanted me to raise with them, I can certainly do that. You do raise an interesting point, I think, about antisocial behaviour, and I think that there is probably a difference or a kind of a different approach maybe in terms of how things are recorded in different areas. Now, I think with respect to B&S, the antisocial behaviour that we see is generally relatively low level. I think it's not particularly that we don't have a number of cases or anything like that. There is a kind of a subjective nature to it. So perhaps a tenant may perceive that something is antisocial, but actually we might not. And I think the graph there of the past year is reflective of we've probably dealt with quite a lot of things at a relatively low level and been able to address things at a relatively low level as well. However, it is something that I've noticed myself when sort of looking at this report. So I'm going to sit down with the team and have a chat about that, and just a discussion about the way in which we're approaching things. Now, I think the way that antisocial behaviour cases go, they can be long lasting. They can take a significant amount of time to resolve. So despite the fact that we've had no new kind of cases identified or recorded, if you like, within the past 12 months, that's not to say that we don't have cases which we're working on that might have just slightly predated that, if that makes any sense, because they can take some time to kind of work through. But so yeah, no, I take your point, and as I say, it's something I'm going to sit down with the team and have a wee look at.
Thank you.
Councillor Bruce. Thank you, Jonathan. Antisocial behaviour, discussed it a long time ago. Excessive number of dogs or cats or anything else in a county. I looked through the tenancy agreements, and there doesn't seem to be as to what people have in their houses. Is this going to be changed or what?
It's not. I mean, it's not an issue that I'm kind of particularly familiar with. I mean, I think that there might be sort of isolated examples, perhaps that come along where we have to talk to tenants about what is reasonable. And I think we would always kind of come back to that definition and say, well, is the behaviour or whatever else is going on reasonable, as opposed to kind of getting down to specifics in terms of numbers and stuff like that. But again, Councillor Bruce, if there's any particular cases that you want us to kind of focus in on, then happy to do so.
Thank you. Question of defining what's reasonable. That's a difficult one.
Thank you, Jonathan. I just have one question. Back to the homeless presentations again. Could you just clarify for me how people can present as homeless to be housed in Badenoch and Strathspey? Is that through all of Highland, and they can say that they want to be housed in Badenoch and Strathspey, or does you have to be in Badenoch and Strathspey for a certain time, or is it wider than that? Makes sense.
Yeah, I think I understand your question, Councillor. I think it's I suppose it's a number of different things. I mean, what we could probably do is a bit more analysis on that, you know, and break those numbers down a little bit. But I think I would say that probably the majority of those presentations themselves would be from folks that are from or have presented in Badenoch and Strathspey, you know, directly. So that might be somebody that's approached one of our service points or phoned the service centre and indicated that they're in housing need locally. But we can certainly look at breaking those stats down a little bit more for you, and kind of illustrating things a bit better for you.
Yeah, just wondering if that was possible. So, I mean, in theory, could anyone present as homeless in Badenoch and Strathspey? Am I not understanding that, or they could?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody can present as homeless anywhere. You know, that's the you know, the kind of position, and then it's our job to work with that person to work towards an outcome as quickly as possible. You know, whatever that may be. But certainly we can look at those stats in a bit more detail and break it down, and provide a bit more of an illustration for you.
That'd be good if we could, because obviously, I mean, it does cause a bit of pressure locally, I think. Councillor Lobbin, do you want to come back in?
Jonathan, is there any way regarding this, what you've just talked about, is there any possible way that people who present as homeless from within Badenoch and Strathspey are given a higher priority than, for example, someone from the middle of Glasgow?
I mean, I think everybody's points are assessed and kind of allocated on the basis of the HHR policy. So, for instance, if somebody had a need to reside in the Badenoch and Strathspey area, and I can give you that definition of what that looks like. So, if somebody works in the Badenoch and Strathspey area, or somebody who has a particular need to be in the Badenoch and Strathspey area, then we would look to add need to reside points onto an application. So that would kind of, I suppose, be partly an answer to that, Councillor Lobbin. But if I give you that, I can send through that definition of that, if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that'll be good, thanks. But also, are the allocation of points set in stone, or can they be modified? You know, the overall criteria. You know, for example, need to reside, etc., etc. Are those the number of points given for each of these things? Are they set in stone, or can we change them?
I think we follow the HHR allocations policy, and those points and the points categories are set at or agreed at committee, Councillor Lobbin. So we follow that, and I think the policy was last reviewed in, I think it was August 23 by the Housing and Property Committee.
Councillor Coleman, would you like to come back?
Jonathan, following on from that, there is evidence from the NHS side of NHS Highland that we have got people that are moving to the area because of the better, for want of a better word, social care services, and that there has been some, again, evidence showing impact on housing because it fits into the criteria, the need to reside. And I'm just wondering, 23 was very soon after COVID, and there, you know, we are getting data now, we're 5 years post-COVID, where there has been a big demand, and again, it fits in with an ageing demographic. And I wonder if we should maybe look at that, because we've got a lot of younger people that are unable to be homed or housed or be considered because of, you know, homeless or whatever. So I just, we have got increased pressures because it's a desirable place to live.
Thanks, Councillor Coburn. I mean, I think we do work obviously very closely with our colleagues in NHS. I mean, I think that I don't know that you necessarily had a question within that, other than perhaps that we do, as I say, work quite closely with the NHS.
Sorry, Jonathan, my question was, do any of our fellow areas in Highland, I'm thinking of Skye, for example, have a local housing policy where, you know, we can have influence as to what is needed by the locals for our own area?
I would probably defer an answer to that question, Councillor Coburn. That's not my area, Sky, so I wouldn't want to answer specifically on that, but happy to come back to members on that particular question.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I think it's maybe something that we should do. We should make every effort to set up a local housing allocations policy. And maybe that should be a decision of this area committee.
No, I think you're correct. I mean, I think you can see where we're coming from, Jonathan. Obviously, you know, we have pressures locally and young people can't get houses and, you know, declining school rolls as we have in many parts of Highland, but we want to retain our young people in the area and they find it difficult to get houses. So I think it's something that we should look at.
So is, you know, is that possible motion from this area committee that we ask the council to consider setting up a local housing allocations policy for Badenoch and Strathspey?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's the least of
That's
it.
work out, yep.
Not an agreement.
What goes a start item to council?
Good. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. John, do you have anything else?
No, I haven't. I'm just trying to put it sensibly, but I'll leave the question just now.
I was contact Jonathan offline.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thank you very much for your report and for your time today.
Thank you, members. Good morning.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks,
Jonathan.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah, would it be possible to dim the lights a bit? I'm having some.
How do I do that?
Oh, maybe they don't.
The lights off altogether.
It'll probably just go off and I'll try.
Sorry, thank you.
Or I could, not very helpful draw the blinds, but
Just these.
Was there dinner ball in the front of the building?
Yeah, they're
They'll
done.
switch off now.
is that better?
I think that's okay, is it? I'm happy with that.
Right.
As long as you're, thank you. It's
Yeah.
just,
Disco all weekend.
just get new space as well. Thank you.
Next is item 5, members, amenities, grounds maintenance and future operating model. And I see that we have Debbie Sutton here now, strategic lead for community operations and logistics. I hope we got your title right, Debbie. And if you would like to present your report, Debbie, thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, members. Davy Lamont, who's the acting amenities manager, is also present online too.
Apologies, Debbie, sorry, see there, sorry, apologies.
So thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. The report provides information on the current resource levels for grounds maintenance operations in the Badenoch and Strathspey area to maintain the 343,256 square metres of grass, which amenities are responsible for with the resource identified at section 6.1. The report also details the upcoming amenities review, which will develop a future operating model for the service. The intention is for the review to present operating model proposals on how the service could run from April 2026 regarding grass cutting and grounds maintenance operations. And it's a follow-on from the amenities review, which was previously carried out commencing in 2021 and had 6 key themes, all of which were delivered by 2024. Due to the issues identified in last season, we had a budget proposal which was presented to full council in March 2025 for additional investment in amenities. This was accepted and we received an additional £450,000 agreed for investment into grass cutting operations Highland-wide for this season 25-26. This was in addition to the recommendation for Housing and Property Committee on 29th of January 2025 as part of their revenue estates estimates to revert to funding levels which were from 2022, which was 807,500 for grass cutting and 159,300 for weed control, all of which were agreed. So because of this increased HRA funding, we are able to restore the 2022 service standards, allowing for more regular strimming, mowing and chemical weed approved sites. The additional budget will also fund more seasonal workers who will be able to stay an additional month into November and to continue the strimming, hand mowing and weed control where permitted. The plan is to maintain the existing rewilded areas and hopefully to expand them through a structured programme of rewilding, helping to achieve the Council's net zero goals by reducing cutting and creating wildlife corridors and also focusing on path maintenance in our larger green spaces. For the future operating model, the intention is to develop a model that is based on reviewing our end-to-end processes within other functions, including roads, housing and facilities management, to identify commonality and synergies that will deliver cost-effective and responsive grass cutting and grounds maintenance service, regardless of the function as it works for. The service will move away from previous practices and consistently apply the agreed outcome specification, adjusting for site-specific needs. Resources should be distributed equitably and work carried out flexibly, with the review focusing on workforce development, succession planning, expanding set-aside, procuring an asset management system and creating an integrated weed control strategy and action plan. The full redesign of the operating model will allow for a more efficient and cost-effective service across the place cluster. I would ask members to note the contents of the report, and Davy and I will be happy to take any questions or comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie. Just before I go to members, Debbie, I just wonder, is it possible, obviously not for today, but is it possible at an upcoming board meeting to get a report on which areas in each of our communities are to be covered? I mean, first of all, it's obviously good news that you have extra funding and the cost cutting, etc., is going to be going back to levels it was before. But is it possible to have a report so we can see in each of our communities what is actually being done in each area?
Yes, that's fine. You mean to see the maps, essentially?
Yeah, to see the maps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem. You can do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you for the report, Debbie. I wonder if there's an opportunity between the teams that carry out the work and the various communities that have got various volunteers that with some fantastic names associated with them. Obviously, we've got Avonmore, we've got Carbridge, we've got Kingussie, we've got Newtonmore. They all do stuff. I think it would be helpful to work with them and identify, not lose the volunteers that we've got, but work with them to really improve our communities, because I think the partnership working is certainly the way forward, and that would tie in with things like weed killing, because some communities are again to the strong chemical stuff. I know a community that was recently had got salt from forestry, and they were doing that, they bought that themselves. So again, it's that working together, the learning from both, and making sure that the communities feel a bit supported in the good work that they're doing.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Coburn. Definitely that's something we will be looking at as part of the future operating model, and working with existing groups and trying to identify any new groups that might be looking to establish across the different areas. So that's really worthwhile. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Loveland.
Yeah, just quick couple of things. Firstly, what's sport grass, and are we continuing to restrict the use of glyphosate as play parks and primary schools?
Thanks, Councillor Robin. Sports grass is those that are maintained to certain pitch standards. For example, shinty sports, or a particular sport that there may be within certain areas. So we don't have very much of that within your area. I think Inverness has the most amount of sports turf grass.
I'm sure that we've got certainly football fields. Are those considered sports grass?
Yes, but they'll have a grass cutting standard that's required for playing the sport. So if it's designated as sports grass, it will depend on Highland, who generally set the levels depending on what sports are played and what the allocation of funds are for those sports. So it will depend, each area will depend what the allocation is. I can certainly check if you think maybe it's incorrect what's been allocated in the Badenoch area.
Well, I actually had a similar thing here, because there's a football pitch at Cromdale, football pitch at Bolton Garden, football pitch at Nethy Bridge. Football pitch at Carbridge. At Carbridge as well, yeah. So I'm assuming that they would be sports grass. So
it depends if they are designated as football pitches or if they're just kickabout pitches, there's a difference. So if they're used for competing or for specific teams that play on them, or they're just referred to locally as football pitches, there can be some discrepancies between that, but we can certainly check.
The one at Cromdale is used regularly because Strathspey Rovers, the Strathspey Thistle kids team, but Strathspey Rovers is their kids team. They train there every Saturday, so it's used regularly. And there used to be a really healthy Strathspey and Badenoch Welfare Football League, but I think there's still a few teams that are playing, so it would be worth finding out if that should be at sports standard. I think, if that's okay, please.
Yeah, I'll certainly check that, no problem. And the other part of your question, Councillor Lovan, about the reductions in use of glyphosate. Yes, so definitely that the partial ban is still in place, and we are not using products containing glyphosate in those areas. And across the other areas, we are looking to reduce the levels of glyphosate usage and trialling alternative products as and when they become available.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Bruce. Debbie, weed killing, is that part of your remit? Not just the grasses we've been talking about, but pavements and guttering and that sort of thing.
Yes, so we do the housing footpaths on housing's behalf. So as instructed by them, they'll identify the areas of housing footpaths that are required to be done, and we'll carry out the work. The roadside verges are done through our colleagues in roads.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, just add one last thing, Debbie. The rewilded areas, when you said you were looking to perhaps increase them, we would be doing that in conjunction with community liaison, because sometimes communities have a different idea about whether they want areas to be rewilded or not, or kept as grass areas.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Councillor Russell, that's correct. We'll make sure we discuss it with the local community first. And where we have areas identified for rewilding, but we're cutting maybe desire lines through paths and things through areas, then the community are the ideal folk to identify those for us, because they're the ones who use the spaces.
Excellent. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, members? Debbie, thank you very much for the report, and thank you for your time today. Nice to see you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Thanks now. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
The next item is item number 6, members, and it's a bereavement services update, and we have John McLean, Bereavement Services Manager, here to introduce this. Good morning, John.
Hi, good morning, members. Thanks for having us along. Yeah, we're just here to give an update on the bereavement services. It was, we give a regular update to the C&P committee, and it was agreed that we'd come to each area committee annually just to give an update specifically for each area. Back in September 23, a 5-year capital programme was approved, and from there on we've been continually monitoring burial ground capacities with information submitted weekly by burial admin teams. From the report in Appendix 1, that gives details of all the burial grounds within Badenoch and Strathspey with available layers, with also average layers sold each year, giving us the anticipated current capacity. As you'll see, there's only 3 burial grounds that have less than 10 years anticipated capacity, which is Abernethy, Canusie New and Laggy Gowan. Thankfully, we're in a good position that all 3 of them have available space within the present boundary to develop layers. 5.4, just give a bit of detail. Abernethy, there's space within the boundary to create up to 60 layers, which will give us an increased capacity to over 14 years. Canusie, again, early in estimations indicate there's space for up to 250 layers, which would give us 50 years additional capacity. And Laggy Gowan is there's space for up to 175 layers, giving us over 25 years additional capacity. So yeah, so that's us, the overview for the area. Thankfully, there's no major challenges, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Good morning as well, Rachel. I've just noticed you there. Apologies, I didn't introduce you at the start. Muriel, Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, John, for the report. Really interesting stuff. Are the team noticing any trends in or changes in the demand for funerals as opposed to other forms of interment or cremation or whatever? Because there's a lot of change and societal change. And the second question is, some local authorities are working with churches who tend to be the custodians of the burial cemeteries and accessing endowment funds for ongoing improvements. Is that something that we've considered, or is it something we do in Highland?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Coburn. Regarding the number of burials, I think the trend we keep an eye on is sort of burials to cremations. Sort of across, I think the Scottish average is about 70% towards cremation, but in the Highlands we're 43%. So there's a big difference. We haven't noticed a major change as yet. Whether that'll over the generation times, we'll see. But yeah, it's just something we keep an eye on, but we haven't seen any major difference. It sort of swings slightly one way or the other, but we generally have a similar rate over the last 5 years. Working with churches, obviously the council are custodians, own all the burial grounds within church grounds. Something that we could look into. I'm not sure there is any available funding from churches in Scotland, but we can certainly look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Can I just ask a question, David? How do we take it that it must be on a kind of average of how many layers have been used over the last number of years? But I was just interested in, can you say there's space for 250 layers resulting in 50 years additional capacity, and Lagan together there's 175 layers resulting in 25 years.
Yeah,
there's a lot more people in Aviemore than there is in Canusi. So how does that work out?
We work out the average over, I think it's the last 7 or 8 years, the number of layers sold. Then and we take an average off that. And that's sort of the figures that we have to work off, and that as I said, it gets updated weekly. So it's just a live number that we keep on, that we know the average. So it's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Other one there, just obviously we go by layers sold, but obviously you get single layers and double layers and things as well. So that's not the actual number of burials, it's just the number of layers sold.
Thank you. Councillor Coburn, come back in.
Thank you. Another question for you, John. We get a lot of tourists, and as you can well imagine, and visiting graveyards, particularly overseas tourists. Is there a pot of money or anything we could identify for maintenance of some of the really old headstones that have fallen into disrepair? Is there anything that we could do? I know it sounds a bit morbid, but the history associated in all our communities with that, because we've got really well-maintained Commonwealth graves, but we've also got the local historical ones going back 1700s. Is there anything that we can do for that?
We have very limited funding for some stabilisation of memorials. It's something that we could maybe look into. We've got a team that goes around just checking the safety and of the memorials to ensure they're safe. and then we're taking each one as it comes. We haven't got any defined plans as yet.
Chair, with
Yeah,
your
Karen.
copy, I'm sorry, you can tell I'm interested in this. Would there be any scope in the future if we have funding via a tourist levy or a tourist infrastructure fund where you could identify or make use of a proportion of funding for that? Could you bid in for that
think-
and make it?
Yep. I think what, again, sort of on the bigger picture of memorial safety is something that we'll probably, I think we're looking to come back to committee after the summer to see a bit more on memorial safety and how we deal with memorials that you've just been talking about, where there's no family left to look after them, because ultimately the headstones are not owned by the Highland Council, but we obviously have a responsibility in making sure it's safe.
Thank you, John. You'll be hearing from me. Thank you.
Any other questions, members?
No.
I just wondered how old does Canusi New Cemetery have to get before it stops being called Canusi New Cemetery and actually gets a name? That's about 80 or 90 years old now, I think.
Yeah. I think it's more just an operational reason we
No,
call
I
it.
think it's called that here as well, Canusi New
Yeah.
Cemetery.
Grandparents the same.
It's going to new, isn't it? Yeah.
Nairn's the same.
Not very original with their names.
It'll be until the next new one, and it'll be the old new one.
Okay. Thank you very much for the report and your time today, John. Thank you. And thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you
Right.
both.
Thanks for having us along. Thanks. Bye bye.
And Aviemore, they get put on a flaming barge and floated down the sea.
Roses thrown at you. Petals.
Oh dear.
£1,000 to get the base and restructure of my father's headstone
Yeah, we've
from South Ayrshire Council.
yeah.
£1,000.
Yeah, it's quite. To be honest, I think we need to. I think we need to really talk about this award meeting.
It's not cheap. Most of the time, you don't agree to that.
Got to pick it up.
Okay, moving on, item 7 is a Community Regeneration Funding Award, and you're asked to note this report that's been circulated, and we have Alison Tanner here to present this. Good morning, Alison.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting us along.
Oh,
and Butte.
I beg your pardon. Good morning.
All right,
Fiona.
yeah, Fiona's here
Sorry,
too.
I just noticed you there, Fiona. I beg your pardon. Good morning, Fiona Cameron.
I think I was going to say a few words about, and if there's any questions, Fiona and I are both here to answer them. So, and today we're particularly looking at 3 current projects that are seeking funding. As you know, the Community Regeneration Funding is an umbrella term which covers the funds available in Badenoch and Strathspey, and at this point in time it covers the place-based investment programme, and also for the first time the Highland Coastal Communities Fund, which you've recently got some funding through. The report today covers the homologation of 2 grants to use up the remainder of the funding from the 23-24 budget, and the first one for the repair of the Burnfield toilets in Granton-on-Spey, and the second for emergency electrical work at Newtonmore Village Hall. Both of those can be covered within the remaining funds for the 23-24 budget. The total request for those 2 applications is £9,435.20. So there are sufficient funds to cover those 2 from the existing budget. And the second proposal today is to ring fence the full allocation of tranche 5, the Highland Coastal Communities funding, which is £50,000, towards the Lochfa car park project. And there also is sufficient funding within the current budget to support that if members agree to this. So I don't know whether it's just worth passing over to you now to see whether or not you wish to approve, defer or reject these applications, and if there's any conditions that you'd like to see attached to any offers that you might make. So,
Members,
Chair,
sorry, Alison. Yeah, members, do we have any comments?
It's something we can agree to, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good use of the funding available.
So I think we're happy to agree to what's set out in the report. And that was the repairs to Burnfield toilets. Was that due to vandalism, or what was the repairs cost?
no, it was to do with skylight windows. So they're sort of old cast iron skylight windows. I think the toilets had been refurbished fairly recently. In the last couple of years, have been taken over by community ownership, and the skylights were not replaced at that time. I think just due to funding pressures. But they've now just over the winter. I think they've deteriorated further, and there's water ingress. So it's not to do with vandalism. It's just to do with aging cast iron skylights, which they're going to be replaced with Velux windows, which are easier to maintain and clean.
Okay, and Newtonmore Hall was to upgrade the electrical system.
Yeah, it's upgrading the electrical system and the more in particular the fire alarm, which was outdated and not compliant with current legislation. So it's meant that the hall has actually temporarily lost its entertainment license, so it can't hold events or weddings and things like that. So it's really quite urgent that the work is done so that this can reopen again for various events which are planned for this coming year. Particularly, I think there's somebody who's very panicked about a wedding coming up.
I know, I've heard.
I know.
Okay, well, I think everyone's content to agree. Alison, thank you very much.
I think that it would be useful probably at some point in the future to bring back more information about the Loch Fa project. I think we're still waiting on proper costs for that. So just to give you more information when we have that in due course.
Yeah.
Mr.
Councillor Bruce.
Alison, have you put in your application for a license for the Newtonmore Hall?
If the Newtonmore Hall will put up a license, surely.
I'll just make sure that it is all right.
I don't really know much about licensing for village halls, but I know that this is something. I think it's just a temporary sort of pause on their license just until this work is carried out, and then it'll be reinstated. I think it's just a administrative matter in terms of like making sure that they've got a fire safety certificate and what have you, and the new electrical work should hopefully discharge any concerns that licensing have.
Alison, I'll let Lewis Anna come in at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been in touch with the Hall's board, the Badenoch and Strathspey, and they've confirmed that although the Hall has a public entertainment licence in place, they're in effect suspending it themselves until they've got these works completed. And they've also advised me that they'll have the works completed by July. So that should hopefully satisfy the deadline for that wedding. In terms of Loch Fa, the intention is that we'll take more sort of operational discussion to the next area business meeting. We've had some more discussion with colleagues in the PDU, and they're still working on designs and costings. So we'll bring that to, like I say, the area business meeting for a more operational discussion on that before we bring any decision back to the area committee on the funding.
Sounds good.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay, Alison, Fiona, I think that's all agreed. So thank you very much for the report, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Need to make sure that we continue to get the minimus.
Yeah,
that's supposed to community fund. The minimus should be uplifted rather than anything else.
Do we have?
We've got David Summers on the next page.
Excellent. Okay. Item 8, members, is David. Item 8 is local transport forum. That's to agree this report, and that's to be introduced by David Summers, Principal Transport Officer, and also Lewis Hanna, our Community Development Manager. So David, I'll let you lead off. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, members. I met you, of course, back in January along with Robin Pope, and I think we had quite a good discussion around what you were looking for the forum to do. So between Lewis and myself, we've pulled together this paper, which also includes, for your information, the terms of reference for the previous Transport and Access Forum. Obviously, that is to some extent superseded, not least because the hospital is now operational, but also because I think we're looking for a wider focus on transport in the area. However, it's there as a potential starting point for drawing up a remit for this group. I'd be happy to get any views from members on anything else that should be included in the terms of reference. Other than that, I think the report, as far as I can think, is fairly self-explanatory, and I'm just keen to hear members' reactions, but I don't know whether Lewis wants to add anything to what I've said.
Thank you, David. Just at this point, I'll also just make note that Cairngorm National Park Authority also contributed to this paper, and we have Colin Simpson with us here this morning. So,
Hi, Colin. I hadn't seen you there.
Lewis, would you like to add anything?
No, nothing to add. Just further to what David said there, but yeah, happy to take any questions on proposals that members may have for the Transport Forum going forward.
Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. Thanks, David and Colin. And you look as if you're having fun, Colin, wherever you are. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, joining you from the car.
No problem. Good start. It'd be nice. I noticed you've got ScotRail on this, as we discussed at length, David, when you came to see us locally. But LNER are not on that. Now, I was at a meeting recently in Aviemore, and LNER are keen to work with us locally because they, they see it as a destination as well as we've also got the school route. So I think if they are keen to be involved, it would be helpful possibly for us as well. And should we have representation from our two senior schools or somebody from that ilk, because young people are important going forward? It's just a question. And have we got any timelines? Because I think we've talked about, you rightly said that the hospital has now been open 3.5 years. And, I think it's important that we can see where we're going forward with a timeline, because that tends to focus the minds a wee bit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. David, do you want to come back with any of that?
Yeah, I have no problem with inviting LNER. I was actually in a meeting with them on another subject not so long ago. So that, I'm sure, is a possibility. And high schools, yeah, it may be that, through the youth team or youth representatives or directly with the schools, we could find appropriate folks to be involved. It's my question is to be who would be best placed to take that forward.
Lewis?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that forward as part of this work, and I'll speak to the area education team, probably through the area education manager, to identify the best placed school reps to be part of this work. I'm happy to take that one.
I'll contact LNER. Okay. And time scales, we had been talking when we met before about, I think it was 3 meetings a year, which Lewis was telling me had been reduced to, in your subsequent discussions, been reduced to 2 with, special subject or particular topic groups in between. So I think I'd see no particular reason to delay on it. It's just how quickly can we get something set up. And Lewis, you'd offered a bit of admin support. It's probably your question, I suspect.
Lewis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to pick up on that. My feeling was, and I'm happy to take questions or comments from this, members, is that given it's quite a large group of community and statutory partners that we're looking at here, my suggestion would be that we suggest to the forum at their initial kind of inaugural meeting that they meet twice a year as a complete group, and that they consider setting up some sort of subgroup structure so that they're taking away particular pieces of work within the work plan of the Transport Forum, just so that we're not creating something that's so large that it just talks about various pieces of activity, and that they can get dialed into some focused work. That was certainly my feeling in terms of the best way to run it, and I think in terms of timelines we can probably set that up relatively quickly. I thought it was particularly important that we took this to the area committee before we set it up, just to make sure that we're putting it setting it up in the right footing. But that was my thoughts, Chair, is that we could consider having two large meetings with all partners a year, and like I say, a subgroup structure within that, working on particular actions coming from the main group. But I'm happy to take questions.
I think that sounds good, and I think we discussed before, if we had one in Strathspey and one in Badenoch, one in Grantown, possibly one in Newton Moor at the facilities in Newton Moor, it might be big enough for that. As far as timelines goes, I mean, would it be possible? Can we get one up and running before the summer recess? Get one in the end of June?
We could certainly do that. We try to do that, yeah.
Would that be a possibility? Because let's try and have some action and get going with it.
Yeah, happy to take that forward, Chair.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea, Chair. I think as well, is it helpful to put an end or a name to finish time? Because if you don't put a name to finish time, we could be in a situation where we were with the Hospital Transport. Councillor Robin will remember this, where we had 3.5 years where nothing really happened. So I think it's, we don't want to, whoever's in these chairs in 3 years' time, to be starting the process again. I think it's, say, we aim to have something in place in 2 years.
Yes, Lewis.
Yeah, no, I think we can set up an inaugural meeting before summer recess, and we can certainly invite all of the community and statutory partners that are listed, and hopefully they'll all be able to make it. And at that inaugural meeting, we can invite the forum, as I say, to consider its composition, remit, terms of reference, frequency of meet, subgroup structure, go through all that kind of composition type discussion at the initial meeting, and then we can take it from there. That would be my thoughts.
Any other comments or questions, members? Good. David, I just wondered, on the list of people involved, could we have anyone who looks after active travel maintenance? Some of the bike paths, etc. They're I don't really know who does that. Whether they're, and does anyone know? Is it the council? Is it Bear? Is it Sustrans? I don't know. So perhaps we could look at maintenance of these paths as well.
Yeah, we can probably do that. I would have to find out who it is, but I suspect it probably comes under our own roads folks, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I can contact the active travel team and find out.
We were going to blame Cairngorm National Park Authority.
Yeah, the access authority. So.
But no, that'd be good if we could look at that. But I think overall, I think it's a good news story, and it's something that we should be pushing forward with. And let's, as we said before, let's make sure that we have plenty of action for it. We've got enough talking shops, and we talk about things a lot. So let's make sure that we get some action out of this.
Yeah. If I can come in again, members, there's that 6.7 in the report. I've outlined a remit. I'm happy to work together along with Lewis on making that into an actual remit. But do members have any questions or particularly anything that you think is an omission from the 4 bullet points that I've got in 6.7?
I think we're happy with that. I really don't think it's.
Yeah, no, happy with that, yeah.
Yeah, those can come back and change. Maybe the only thing I would suggest is that we can maybe, I think it's a good starting point, but I think we maybe take it in a draft form almost to that inaugural meeting and give the group itself the opportunity to maybe add things to it should they want to before we finalise it as a terms of reference or unit. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Agreed. Well, we look forward to the first meeting before the end of June then.
Give my best job.
No pressure, Liz.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Colin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
I think this should always be chaired by the council
Yeah.
and not appointed from within the group.
I want to go back to that.
So it failed before.
Yeah, for sure.
Saying is the chair should basically with a thought on it. Just for the purpose of the minute.
Yeah. Yeah, just going back to that item, I mean, just say again, it's what you were suggesting there.
So my suggestion is that this group should be chaired by a member of the council, and that's part of its. I suppose it's terms of reference.
Yeah.
It's chaired by a member of the council, and it will be up to, I suppose, us as members now and in the future to decide who chairs that meeting.
It would be a member. Yeah. Have we agreed on that?
Yes, agreed.
Because as Muriel said, the reason it broke down the last time was it was not chaired by a member of the council.
Okay, well, I think we're all content with that. Thank you. Item 9 is word discretionary budget. The committee is invited to note that the following word discretionary fund applications have been approved since the last committee. I think if you're okay, Lewis, might just read them out. I think it's quite interesting.
Certainly, Chair.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, so since the last committee meeting, there's 8 applications been approved, and I'll just quickly run through those. The Aviemore Community Enterprise Company was awarded £2,160 for its outdoor classroom link path. The Badenoch and Strathspey Access Panel was awarded £1,110 to update its disability access guide. Fish Bay was awarded £600 for its Fish Day in 2025. The Grantown Outdoor Bowling Club was awarded £500 for its project working towards net zero. The Grantown YMCA Community Centre was also awarded £500 for its community storage project. The Kincraig and Vicinity Community Council were awarded £200 for football goalposts, and the Kincraig Parish Church was awarded £2,000 for its weekly lunch for school pupils project. And finally, the Newtonmore Community Woodland Development Trust was awarded £1,000 towards the cost of its Calder Path Wildcat Trail Bridge installation project. Good, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Lewis. That's good. Good projects there. Thank you. Item 10, the minutes, previous meetings circulated, which have been circulated. Are we happy to note these minutes?
Agreed.
Well, I think that brings today's business to an end. Members, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Lewis, and thank you to all officers for the reports and attendance. And to close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.